steady my heart on the ground of your goodness. When I'm bowed down with sorrow, I will lift up your name. When the foxes in the vineyard will not steal my joy, because you are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me. I lift my eyes to the hills where my help is found. When your voice fills the night, raise my head up to hear the sound. No fires burn all around me. I will praise you, my God. And the foxes in the vineyard will not steal my joy, because you are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me. Your goodness and mercy shall follow me all my life. I trust in your promise. Your goodness and mercy shall follow me all my life. I trust in your promise. Your goodness and mercy shall follow me all my life. I trust in your promise, because you are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, because you are good to me, good to me. You are good to me, good to me. You are good to me.
Hey everybody, I want to welcome you to this week's message. My name is Dustin, and I'm so excited that you are joining us for this video. Welcome to week 137 of quarantine. Jamie and I have had to resort to cutting our own hair. Jamie had to cut my hair, which is why I'm wearing hats, and I've had to cut Jamie's hair, which is why she is refusing to make an appearance on camera. I'm only joking about a few of those things. I'll let you decide which. But here we are. We are in the midst of the proverbial, figurative, and maybe even literal storm that is the coronavirus. We're in self-isolation, we're quarantining, and for so many of us, this is uncharted waters. We have never been in a moment like this before, and we're panicked. Now, I want to let you know, we will get through this. This will pass. But if we're to remain faithful through the storm, then it'd be helpful for us to navigate the scriptures, to look at the stories of others who have journeyed through similar storms, to find out how they made it through it, how they were faithful to God in the midst of those storms. And so pastorally, we thought, man, we should start a new digital series titled Weathering the Storm so we can learn from others. And I thought there'd be no better example to start with than looking at the story many of us have heard growing up, many of us are familiar with, but maybe have never looked at through a fresh lens, and that is the story of Jonah. Now, I want us to look particularly at what Jonah prays in chapter 2, and then we'll kind of rewind, look at the context, and give us a few takeaways. In Jonah chapter 2, we read this. From inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God. He said, "In my distress, I called to the Lord, and he answered me. From deep in the realm of the dead, I called for help, and you listened to my cry. You hurled me into the depths, into the very heart of the seas, and the currents swirled about me. All your waves and breakers swept over me. I said, I've been banished from your sight, yet I will look again towards your holy temple. The engulfing waters threatened me. The deep surrounded me. Seaweed was wrapped around my head. To the roots of the mountains, I sank down. The earth beneath barred me in forever. But you, Lord my God, brought my life up from the pit. When my life was ebbing away, I remembered you, Lord, and my prayer rose to you, to your holy temple. Those who cling to worthless idols turn away from God's love for them, but I, with shouts of grateful praise, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will make good. I will say, salvation comes from the Lord. And the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. So what are the takeaways we can gain from this text? Well, one, I believe the first thing we got to catch is that we are meant to turn to God in the midst of the storm. God often uses the storm so that we will turn to him. Now, if we back up and look at how this narrative begins, remember we have Jonah, whom God had called to go to the people of Nineveh. Jonah refuses. He ends up piecing out of town, getting on a ship, going the complete opposite direction. His life looked entirely different. Even though he knew God, his life functionally did not reflect that. And so he's living in the opposite direction. The crisis hits, the storm hits, the waves are raging, people are panicked, and they begin to call out to God. And I think it's so funny that it's often in the storms that we often find ourselves calling to God. No matter where we're at in our faith and how much we are attuned to the Lord or running from him, that it's often in the middle of the storm that God uses those opportunities for us to reach out to him. Now, I want to be very clear. I do not believe that God is causing the coronavirus for us to reach out to him. But I do believe that God is using the coronavirus for us to reach out to him. These are two different things. And I think that God weeps with us in our calamity. God hurts with us in our pain, but he also uses those opportunities for good to bring us into right relationship with him. So Jonah is thrown overboard into the sea, and this is where we read that a great fish was prepared, and it came and it swallowed Jonah whole. And this is where we read the prayer that we cited just earlier from chapter 2. And I think it's so surprising and so striking that we often read this text and we read this as a story and we're like, oh no, this is so bad that a fish came and swallowed Jonah. He was eaten alive. It's such a terrible thing. And we know that Jonah prays from the fish, but Jonah never once asked God to have the fish spit him out. We never once read that Jonah said, God, please get me out of this fish's belly. Instead, we read a praise of thanksgiving. We read a praise of gratitude. We read Jonah's prayer, and he's offering his deep appreciation for God. In this text, we read that the very thing that swallowed him whole was not his punishment, but it was his salvation. I think many of us can identify with what it feels like to be trapped inside of something right now in this time. We can definitely identify, maybe we are not inside of some aquatic creature. We are locked inside of our homes, our apartments. We are locked in with the fear of alarming news and all sorts of really stressful situations. But in that place, when Jonah was inside of a fish in the depths of the sea, he offers gratitude. The fish saved him from the waves. It saved him from calamity. The fish itself was the means that God was bringing him restoration and wholeness. And I think there's one last point that is so striking to me is that after we read this prayer, Jonah's in the fish, for 3 days and 3 nights. That must have seemed like so long. And the fish spits him out onto dry land at Nineveh. I find that amazing that the very thing that swallowed Jonah whole was the very thing that delivered him to where he was meant to be all along. So I think there are 3 action points I would love for each of us to implement this week right away. 1, let's collectively turn to God. Let's not let this moment in history escape us without turning to God and deeply crying out to him. No matter where we're at in our faith journey, I realize for some of us, it may look different than others. For some of us, we have been well attuned to God and we are active in prayer and we are crying out to him, and let's just keep doing that more and more and more. But others of us, it might be really awkward. It might feel disingenuous. It might feel totally foreign to us to even call out to a being that's something. But I think collectively, we would benefit so greatly then to call out to God. So number 1, let's call out to God in the storm. Number 2, let's be like Jonah. And then though we are swallowed up, though we are contained and maybe even a bit claustrophobic, though we might be in the proverbial belly of the fish right now, maybe for some of us, it's our house with our kids running around. For some of us, it might be a really isolated, empty, lonely apartment. But no matter what it is, let's focus on the things that we can be grateful for. And lastly, let us cling to a defiant hope to know that this will pass. And when it does, we will be closer to being the people that we were meant to be all along. So friends, thank you so much. Again, let's cry out to God. Let's practice gratitude. Let's have the hope that when this passes, we will be better for it. Thank you so much. Blessings. We love you all.